Well, I'm finally actually getting around to doing an analysis video on a quote-unquote popular franchise, and I thought I might as well go after Disney and Star Wars, due to my own personal views on Disney and their insipid business practices that have been a quicksand experience that they just seem to love diving headfirst back into after another golden opportunity reveals itself. I'm looking at you, Mandalorian, and And if I'm going to tackle Disney and Star Wars, I was going to start off where my love of modern cinema became a Force ghost, The Last Jedi. However, due to my inexperience in this field as of right now, I figured I'd tackle something a little more manageable, like a television show episode by episode. Don't worry, there's definitely going to be a critique video coming out about that slogfest. Sure, can the Acolyte seem to be easy pickings or low-hanging fruit that has already been plucked by more popular analysis channels like Mauler, Robot Head, Movie Cynic, etc.? Yeah, true, but I don't see any harm in making a video to beat a dead horse, because that's essentially what Disney has been doing with their recent blunders they elect to call quote-unquote cinema. Also, I wanted to tackle this series to see if the reviews and critiques are true or just pandering because, you know what? That can happen. And I'd rather give something a fair chance before I analyze it semi-critically. So, let's dive in. I'm gonna end up regretting this, aren't I? Okay. Well, let's get started. Episode 1 starts off with a text introduction, pretty much talking about it being 100 years before the events of Revenge of the Sith, and how the Galactic Republic and Jedi lived in prosperity during that time. You know the drill. The text also talks about some people beyond the scope of the Jedi training in using the Force. Okay, that's an idea I can get behind. It's actually something I would geek out about in high school with my other friends. I actually agree with this concept that in the vastness of the Star Wars galaxy, there have to have been groups or individuals who train in the Force who aren't aligned with the principles of the Jedi. I think that's more likely and pretty cool, but I have a feeling that Disney is going to drop the ball on this concept harder than the ancient one hit the ground. The text ends with some stuff about an assassin risking exposure to get revenge. Wait. They actually ended with 4 periods instead of the usual 3. You know who else did this? Otis Neil Breen, of course. Good job, Disney. Good job. Then we see the first shot of some interesting scenery and a hooded figure. The scene shows the title Ueda. If I butchered that name, don't blame me. This is Star Wars we're talking about here, and some of those side characters or background characters seriously have some gibberish names. Not making fun of it, just pointing it out. The hooded figure approaches some buildings and asks a stranger,
"Where's your Jedi?"
To which the stranger responds, you know, this sort of thing usually makes me think of how they could have established a character differently. This character is so skilled that she kills Tara McDonald. You thought I was going to make a Trinity reference here, didn't you? But instead I went with Dark Justice. Oh, and spoilers by the way. Then again, if you're here, I doubt you really care. Anyways, the reason why I bring up the concept of establishing characters is because it can make or break how an audience views or connects with them. A prime example of this is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Spoilers for that film too, and if you haven't seen it, I seriously implore you to go click off this video right now and go watch it. There's a reason it's considered one of the best classics in cinema history, and Ennio Morricone's soundtrack echoes in my head to this day. In the first few scenes of that film, it's established that Angel Eyes, played by the late great Lee Van Cleef, establishes his dominance. He's sitting there, he eats his host's food while he interrogates him in a tense scene, and he ends the scene by killing the man and I believe one of his sons. It establishes so much in that shot with actual believable tension and characterization for these characters. Anyway, you're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about as to why introduction to characters matters, because I'm about to talk about it here in a second. Hey look, ramen is popular even in the galaxies far, far away. Who knew? The hooded figure walks up to the bar, then turns and heads towards a table where she sees her possible target. And I kid you not, the first lines of dialogue between 2 characters in the show are as laughable as they can be and delivered like people who think how role-playing characters sound. No, the hooded figure asking the stranger earlier doesn't count because the stranger didn't say anything. Literally, the hooded figure says,
"Master Indara."
To which Tara McDonald replies,
"Yes, my child."
It's dialogue like this, which is why I cannot take these big budget films studios seriously anymore. Their dialogue is usually atrocious or dry or delivered like someone who studied low-grade soap operas. Also, the whole "my child" line for characters you're trying to make seem wise or composed actually does the opposite, especially when it's delivered like,
"Yes, my child."
Even Gandalf, or Professor X, or Darth Vader, or the frickin' Emperor himself never said lines like this. And no, my apprentice isn't the same thing. Anyway, the hooded figure removes her robe and says they have unfinished business, then gets into a battle-ready stance like it's a comedy. Seriously. This character, who we're supposed to take seriously, walked up to a Jedi, said 6 words,
Master Indara, we have unfinished business.
then struck a battle stance in the middle of this cantina. You can even see that the characters around see this as weird. With how high the stakes are supposed to be established at this point, you'd think that they would have at least an interesting back and forth exchange of words before the inevitable battle. But no, we get 9 words in total, then an awkward stance. What they should have done is have the hooded figure approach the table, pull up a chair and sit, displaying confidence and assertiveness, then saying Master McDonald, then show the people at the table get uncomfortable, then show some of them leave. An entire scene of dialogue between these 2 characters follows and helps us understand more of what's at stake, why the hooded figure is here, even if it's not in full detail, and get us invested or connect with these characters at least a little. Some tension could arise from some words exchanged, then battle stances happen and the battle begins. Show the remaining patrons at the table jump back and move away from what's about to happen. This easy fix could have displayed the stoic personality of Hogarth, there's a Jessica Jones reference for you, and the ambition behind the hooded figure's motives for being there, and add tension even for the audience as we anticipate the climax of this exchange. Such a waste. Anyways, Hoodless Angst then challenges the Jedi to attack her, and the Jedi says she admires her courage and calls her a quote-unquote young warrior. Then we get the usual back and forth of, I want you to fight me, Jedi, and Jedi don't attack, and but you do, blah blah blah. No depth to these characters at all, just the face value, surface level characters that is in modern writing. Then Hoodless starts attacking the patrons of the table? What? I seriously paused at this point and thought, what is even the motive for this? Because they laughed at her stupid approach and awkward stance. I hate to break it to you, girl, but
You have done that yourself.
I'm not joking when I say I have no idea why she attacked these bystanders, because they made no threats, no words were exchanged, no movements towards holsters to grab blasters or weapons, nothing. Just, I'm a bad guy and I'm so angry I'll attack anything. Yet she didn't just do this off the bat to her intended target? Master Trinity wasn't even facing her as she approached. There's your Trinity reference. And no, don't give me that, but she's a Jedi Master and would have sensed that coming BS when it has been established that even Force users get surprised and even assassinated.
Oh, it's you.
Activate ray shields!
Ray shields. Wait a minute. How did this happen? We're smarter than this.
It's the same old argument we nerds hear from Spider-Man fans with, but he's got spider sense, so he should never get hit spiel. Just because Spider-Man has spider sense, or the Jedi have the Force, doesn't mean they're invulnerable beings. It's quite literally shown within these 2 franchises that those powers or abilities can fail or be countered in some way, so that Force argument goes out the window. Back to Hoodless being dumb, she begins a barrage of martial arts moves on the table dwellers, and some of the most over-the-top action for a Star Wars scenes ensues. Yes, Star Wars has always had some sort of action, but usually it was grounded in some sense of physics and realistic sense despite the Force existing, like Vader having to use the Force to hurl crates and boxes at Luke in Empire Strikes Back. Yet Hoodless can topple over a table, then kick this table a good 5 to 10 feet to slam one of the table dwellers into another table. Those crates in ESB were smaller than this one table, by the way. Just thought I should throw that out. Trinity from Timu grabs Hoodless's arm, and I kid you not, a musical sting plays that reminded me of The Matrix. Just something else I also thought I'd throw out there. Then the awaited battle begins, with flashy martial arts moves and Hoodless reaching for the Jedi's
laser sword.
And the slow-mo and music stings they use throughout this fight made me realize that they're trying so hard for Wish Trinity to be like Matrix Trinity. They even have a shot with a sting similar to Neo's shot, stopping the bullets with his mind. The Jedi asks, "Who trained you?" Then Hoodless leaps away onto the mezzanine and takes a woman hostage. Brainless Trin, instead of taking the logical approach and use her force to leap towards the unknown attacker, or, that force she's been using throughout this entire battle to literally hold Hoodless's weapon at bay, she decides to take a long way around to essentially end up farther away from her opponent.
What the hell is wrong with you? I'm really asking. Are you actually this stupid? Idiot.
At this point, all she knows about this strange Hoodless person is that she wants to fight her, is volatile, and uses the Force. Taking the long way around is risking the hostage's life. Oh well. Anyways, she uses a communication device of some kind to say she's facing an unidentified Force user. The hostage is then thrown by hopeless Hoodless off the mezzanine. Hey you, moron. You probably should have kept your hostage for an actual advantageous opportunity while fighting this Jedi instead of wasting it. I don't know. Just me, I suppose. It's alright though, because the hostage is saved by Master Matrix with the Force. Oh, that's why you wasted your hostage advantage. You were doing that for the audience to see a stupid shot of the Force being used in the most brainless way. Gotcha. Again, good job, Disney. Then, after all the time that has passed, the Bethesda brains of the patrons finally clicked on and realized that they should get out of Dodge while they still can. Flashy fight happens, and Jedi removes Hoodless's mask, revealing who she is, and guess what? No name drop, no question, just you. I know many people are going to say something along the lines of, well, the audience isn't supposed to know who this person is for the twist later. I'm sorry, but that's just dumb. The twist wasn't even worth it, and this isn't how people in this situation would act when someone they recognized, even though that's doubtful from many, many years ago, to being attacked by said person. They'd be inquisitive, or at least say their name in a questioning tone. They even did this earlier in this very franchise.
Shut water. Ting mi chasa hopa. Mi boska da Shmi Skywalker.
Even Watto didn't go, you. Not even calmly, because he isn't being attacked by Anakin here. He's inquiring if the person he sees before him is the person he believes him to be. Trinity here just saying you for a pointless twist down the line serves nothing to the overarching story. I miss when writing was decent and characters, though flawed, made sense. Hoodless then asserts she wants to end the Jedi's life after some very vague words, and Trinity warns her that she doesn't want to go down that road. Hoodless then says,
A Jedi doesn't pull her weapon unless prepared to kill.
Huh?
I'm sorry, what is this nonsense? I may not be the biggest Star Wars brain and know all the background lore of every detail, but when has this ever been an established thing? I know the defense for this can be that these events take 100 years before Revenge of the Sith, but I'm sorry, are we actually establishing in Disney's canon, which is a dumpster fire all on its own, that the Jedi somehow had a centennial doctrine to never use their lightsabers even for self-defense?
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Are we seriously trying to make Disney Jedi seem even worse with this garbage? Like, Jedi up until this very point in time are known to have never used lightsabers unless to kill? Also, how does this even make sense? If the Jedi only unsheath their lightsabers with the intention to kill, and with how much the show tries to play up that Jedi are some supernatural, invulnerable beings that quote-unquote cannot be felled by weapons, how would anyone survive to tell those stories? Are Jedi so stupid that they just let stragglers go?
I don't know.
Have there ever been wars or battles fought where the stakes were extremely high and the Jedi needed to protect themselves, their order, or the Republic? I'm not buying that slop one bit, and anyone who does should really question themselves with why. Why would Disney establish this as their canon when it does nothing but add many questions with such a premise? It also detracts away from the moment we're supposed to be watching on screen. Again, I miss when writing was decent and people actually thought about connecting their narratives instead of throwing Hail Marys at the wall to see what sticks. Oh boy, I miss those days. So Hoodless hides a knife behind her back, and the bartender, who's an idiot and stayed behind because why leave to get local authorities when a lunatic comes into your establishment and fights some of your patrons? Better yet, why not just leave if you don't have a local authority at all?
You're a moron.
It's not like staying here did anything of merit other than to be the exact reason why the Jedi Master dies. A very stupid death, by the way. His purpose for staying behind was to make some noise reminding our two characters that he's still there.
What was the plan then, genius?
And so Hoodless can do this. And so Trinity at home can do this. Which leads to Hoodless doing this. So, Jedi is dead, and they play some music supposed to invoke some sort of emotion, but I need to remind you that what we've seen so far has no character development, nor is the music warranted for any of these characters because they're not established beyond the basics of I'm Stoic Jedi and I'm angry at this Jedi. Then, in character for her because she's stupid, Hoodless leaves Jedi's lightsaber and takes only her knife. She walks towards the bar and there's supposed to be some tension building like she's going to attack the bartender, but it's revealed she's grabbing the knife she threw to distract Jedi Master. However, they try to pull a switcheroo on the switcheroo and have Hoodless go into an aggressive pose like she's about to throw her knife at the bartender. A stupid switcheroo and needless. Just before it seems like she's going to harm the bartender, the camera pans down revealing he has a child, and Hoodless walks away. I guess they wanted to establish that she won't harm children or those with children, even though there are times when this gets thrown out the window in the series, so remember this moment that she decided not to harm the bartender because he has a child with him. If you're going to defend this by saying that's not what they're trying to establish here, then I ask you, what are they going for with this scene? Why do a switcheroo like, oh, she's not going to harm the bartender because now we see she's only grabbing her knife, to do another switcheroo like, never mind, she's getting into a threatening pose as if she's actually going to throw the knife, to then do a switcheroo on the switcheroo that switcherooed the original switcheroo. Are you following this? With, wait, she won't harm this bartender because he has a kid. I'm truly amazed at how modern scenes are written, shot, acted out, edited, and released with outcomes like this. Truly amazing. Yep, this is peak cinema, ladies and gentlemen, where studios think that doing stupid twists or switcheroos like this are considered good writing when they're not built up, there's no payoff, and it actually detracts from the scene as a whole. Oh man, I'm only 7 minutes and 20 seconds into this slog. Truly, I didn't really think it was going to be this bad. I mean, I didn't expect much, and I'm not saying Mahler or Movie Cynic were lying to me, but this is actually sad that a show couldn't prove them wrong. After that fiasco of a series of scenes, we get the first intro to the first episode of the Acolyte. Not really an intro, more like just a title reveal. Then we see Hoodless wake up. Oh wait, her hair's shorter than it was before. Maybe this is a flashback. Maybe this is in the future when she thought taking care of that long hair was too tedious. Or maybe this is supposed to be a different character who looks identical to Hoodless like a twin or something. Seriously, a twist they thought was clever and it really wasn't. I'd even go as far as to say it was forced. I had to get at least one force pun in, okay?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Anyways, we see short hair wake up and breathing heavily like she's trying to act or something, and it comes off as fake. We then see a droid she calls Pip, and she says to Pip,
Whoa, inside voices, Pip.
remember, this is a droid that speaks binary, or whatever it's called when R2 speaks. She says this to a droid. That doesn't change its volume. It then keeps beeping and Shorthair says thank you as if the droid actually lowered its volume.
Whoa, inside voices, Pip. Thank you.
See, it's stuff like this. Like, I don't understand why they don't catch this in editing and go, oh, hey, we might need to reshoot that. Or, oh, hey, let's edit it so that Pip's voice or his beeps, whatever, are lower. I don't know. Just a crazy thought, right? An alarm rings out and Shorthair thinks they have a job. She starts heading down some hallways and is joined by a friend or colleague or coworker, and we establish that she must be some sort of mechanic or something similar since she leaves the ship to repair something outside of the ship. We also find out her name is Osha. A Nemoidian is shown barking something within what I assume is the bridge about time running out when we just saw Osha get on the outside of the ship. You know, this can be jarring for viewers to not establish a solid flow of time before scenes like these are put together. Usually you'd show character, or characters A, starting to do something with an establishing shot, then maybe show us character or characters B somewhere else, maybe monitoring them or the situation. Then you go back to characters A as they're trying to work. Maybe have one of them make a mistake or drop something or talk about something that's making the job longer than normal. Then you show a shot of character B frustrated with what's taking so long. But that's not how Disney rolls, I guess. Just cram as much as possible within the littlest time and call it development or growth or something like that. Then we get an awkward back and forth dialogue between Osha and I believe his name is Philic? I can't be too certain, so I'm just going to call him that from now on. Anyways, like I said, they have some awkward dialogue that doesn't sound like how people interact with each other, especially not coworkers.
Frankly, I'm hurt because Philip is clearly disposable, but me, on the other hand, come on.
Very funny.
The lines are not necessarily bad, I guess, but they're not delivered in an organic or natural way, so it kind of falls flat on what it's trying to accomplish. Oh, by the way, most of the dialogue in the show is like this, so I won't try to mention it too much because that would make this video way longer than it needs to be, and I feel it would just be easier to only bring up the times when the dialogue is either really bad or passable. Philic tells Osha that the pressure gauge is spiking, and I'm serious when I say I had to rewind this several times, then ultimately just turn on the subtitles to be sure he said the word pressure here.
Wait, the pressure gauge is spiking. The pressure gauge is spiking. The pressure gauge is spiking.
I figured he said pressure, but after rewinds, it sounded like butcher or picture, and that's when I knew subtitles would need to be turned on for clarification. And of course, like the idiot Osha is, she ignores his obvious warning, continues with whatever she's doing, and then we get...
And that was the pressure valve.
So yeah, Osha's an idiot who decided that it would be important to disregard her coworker's obvious warning that something wrong is about to happen and continue to do that thing that caused the
pressure valve
to burst. Osha at least takes responsibility and offers to handle it herself, but gets an auditory flashback and is pulled out by Pip beeping and Philic telling her to stop messing around, so she puts out the fire. Yay. Another ship comes into view, and we're back to the Nemoidians from earlier who go, Jedi?
Jedi?
And I kid you not, this is the take and noises Disney decided to go with. A little off topic here, but it's dialogue or noises like this that really get me to roll my eyes. It's like those Netflix dubbed shows that makes live action people sound like anime characters, and it's just off-putting to me. I don't know, I may be alone on this one, but I really laugh or cringe inside when I hear this sort of thing with live action characters in a live action show or film. I know the Nemoidians were pretty toonish in the prequels, but the dialogue and noises here were definitely a choice.
What is taking so long? Activate the shield immediately.
Naruto wants us to know that he's not a brat.
The mechanics are on it, Captain.
Their grease grubbers are disposable. Our cargo is not.
Jedi?
We see the Jedi somehow enter the bridge as if that's how ship procedures work.
Shuttle to Dirian. What is your cargo and destination?
Parts and technical crew for the Forest Moon.
Do they have a code clearance?
It's an older code, sir, but it checks out.
Captain.
Yes, sir.
Tell them we wish to board at once.
With all due respect, the ambassadors for the Supreme Chancellor wish to board immediately.
Yes, of course.
I'm TC-14 at your service. This way, please. We are greatly honored by your visit, ambassadors. Make yourselves comfortable. My master will be with you shortly.
What? What did you say?
The ambassadors are Jedi Knights, I believe.
No identification needed or codes to scan just to make sure that they are indeed Jedi. No back and forth little scene where they confirm they'd like to speak to the captain or commander of the ship. No, it's just cool to land, dock, and make your way to what many consider to be the most important room of a ship.
Are you actually this stupid?
Yes, I know that I'm assuming this room is the bridge, but at this point, nothing in the show has led me to believe it isn't, so it's the bridge to me until proven otherwise. We get some exchange where the Jedi introduce themselves, Lord Fanart, a master, and Tossi Bat-Ears, an apprentice, and Fanart asks for Osha. They also establish that Osha is a former Jedi.
We are looking for a former Jedi by the name of Osha Anaseya.
The female Nemoidian quivers. which Bat Ears notices. Captain Blex, a name I had to look up for the male Nemoidian, denies knowing of OSHA's existence and that they don't use organic mechanics. Then the Jedi Master lifts his hand like he's going to read his mind or something, and in a frightened way, the female Nemoidian gives up OSHA's supposed location. I'm sorry, can I just stop right here and say that I really don't like what Disney has done with the Force? Like, now it's their canon that Force users can enter people's minds to gain information, and if not, then what was the point of this gesture? If it was meant to be threatening, then why be threatening if you're supposed to be reputable Jedi? Oh wait, these are the Acolyte Jedi, so they're somewhat bad guys, I suppose. It's just so silly to think that so many Force users before the events of the sequels and after the events of the Acolyte were just so stupid and didn't use this very powerful ability for many situations, like when the Council wanted to know Anakin's motives, or when Vader interrogated Leia for information, or when the Council wanted to know Palpatine's motives, or when Vader tortured Han in Cloud City. Sure, there's a line later revealing that they didn't even question Han during his torture, but this ability could have definitely come in handy to gain any information out of Han, Leia, or Chewie. You see, whenever stories do this whole expanding on or adding new abilities to already established power systems thing they seem to love to do, they're playing a very dangerous game with their world building, because doing such things, especially if it's done frequently, it is a glaring issue for the audience because they start asking questions like, why didn't they do this before? And where was this ability at this part of the story? And so on. Disney has done this with the Force. Abilities that were never shown are now just readily available for plot convenience. What's even crazier to me about this sort of thing is it can be fixed pretty easily with maybe a scene or two and some dialogue talking about how rare it is for someone to have such an ability or abilities. For instance, let's say that fan art uses this gesture like he's about to use the ability to enter Blex's mind. After the scene, fan art and Bat Ears can be shown walking down a hallway with Bat Ears saying something along the lines of, even though you're naturally gifted with entering one's mind, fan art, you know the Jedi Council has warned you of such an ability. It can be dangerous. To which fan art can reply, I know Bat Ears, but I know what I'm doing. Then show him turn to Bat Ears with a grin and say, I am naturally gifted after all. And maybe give Bat Ears a small grin and eye roll. This can add depth to their characters, make them likable, and expand on why and how fan art is able to use such a rare ability. After getting OSHA's location, fan art thanks Blex for his cooperation, even though Blex was doing everything in his power to not be cooperative. Oh well, I guess everyone in this universe is stupid, I suppose. Then fan art and Bat Ears leave the bridge and it cuts to OSHA going to her room only to find out fan art is sitting on her bed. Bat Ears is nowhere in sight. She must be hanging from the ceiling or something. Who knows? Then we get some conversation between OSHA and fan art establishing that they know each other from OSHA's time as a Jedi and that fan art became a knight 2 years ago.
I made knight 2 years ago.
They also show that OSHA is the more playful of the two, and fan art has a lightsaber-sized stick up his tauntaun. Also, can we stop portraying Jedi like this? Like, they're all stoic jerks who try to remain without feeling throughout everything they do, even friendly exchanges. I mean, you can say what you want about the prequel Jedi, but even Yoda smiled. Obi-Wan and Anakin bantered.
I haven't felt you this tense since we fell into that nest of gundogs.
You fell into that nightmare, Master, and I rescued you, remember?
Oh, yes.
Qui-Gon smiled and showed he was proud for Anakin winning the pod race. And even within the same movie, Qui-Gon chuckles as Anakin meets Obi-Wan, and you clearly see them all smiling.
Meet Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Hi. You're a Jedi too? Pleased to meet you.
Seriously, the only real stoic, stuck up his tauntaun Jedi that comes to mind was Windu. The message wasn't to be emotionless robots, it was to be mindful of your emotions and not let them control you.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I don't sense anything.
It's not about the mission, Master. It's something elsewhere, elusive.
Don't center on your anxieties, Obi-Wan. Keep your concentration here and now where it belongs. Remember, concentrate on the moment. Feel, don't think. Use your instincts.
I will.
Portraying Jedi like robots has always just seemed so weird to me. Then I'm gonna get some people in the comments section saying stuff like, but Obi-Wan wasn't emotional in the originals, to which I'll have to remind you of the very thing that I always say on this channel. You can say it with me. Context matters. 1. Obi-Wan was an elder Jedi at that point who had stayed exiled on a desert planet trying to protect the child of his former apprentice who he believed he had failed and who became known as the most feared Jedi killer in the galaxy. 2. Obi-Wan's first exchange in A New Hope is actually lightly jovial when he tells R2 not to be afraid.
Hello there. Come here, my little friend. Don't be afraid.
3. Obi-Wan wasn't robotic in the cantina when he tried to de-escalate a situation where Evazan and Ponda accosted Luke. 4. He wasn't robotic with his exchange with Han when negotiating passage on the Millennium Falcon. In fact, I wouldn't describe Obi-Wan robotic at all, more like a concerned old man trying to make sure Luke gets on the right path. 5. And this is for the people who want to use Yoda as an example. In the same trilogy, Yoda plays the fool to test Luke's patience and see if he's Jedi material. Even when he returns to his former demeanor, he's not robotic, and even he has some friendly banter with Luke regarding looking good at 900 years before his passing in Return of the Jedi.
When 900 years old you reach, look as good you will not.
The point is, can we just stop portraying Jedi like some stoic, emotionless drones? Sure, there can be a few here and there, but this show is 2 for 2 on that regard. Temu Trin and fan art. No, I'm not counting Bat Ears just yet, since she has had 0 dialogue thus far. Anyways, back to the review or whatever. Osha goes to put Pip away and fan art puts his hand on his lightsaber like Osha is about to pull out a weapon and use it on him. Kinda weird considering that if she wanted to hurt him, she could have easily done it here. Bat Ears enters the room. Oh look, there she is, not on the ceiling at all. Osha relays her concerns of what's going on and is asked to take a seat, to which Bat Ears begins interrogating her about her life as a Jedi. Now the show is 3 for 3 for the stoic emotionless drone thing since Bat Ears is anything but a robot here. It turns out they are there because of Master Trinity's murder on Ueda and suspect that Osha must have something to do with it because apparently Osha is the only person in an entire galaxy to somewhat match the description of Hoodless. Meta-knowledge is that they're twins and of course they're going to look alike. But in-universe, this is a pretty big leap considering the fact that the Jedi even brought the bartender an unknown amount of light years away from Ueda just to identify someone. A bartender who was spared by the very person he's trying to point the finger at. A bartender who's a bartender in the Star Wars universe. So leaving his bar just to identify someone should be digging into his income. I'm not saying that having an identification scene can't happen, but definitely not this way. This is what should have happened. Fan art and Osha talk. Bat Ears enters and interrogates Osha. The 2 Jedi ask Osha if she's responsible for Temu Trin's death, to see if she'll come clean. Osha denies it because she didn't do it, but Bat Ears or fan art pull out a device and show Osha that the bar was being recorded and caught Hoodless's mayhem. Osha looks shocked and still denies it, but the Jedi tell her they're there to ensure she leaves to face trial on Coruscant for the crime. And scene. There you go, Disney. I'm not even getting paid and I fixed this scene for you. It establishes the same thing without the stupid bartender inclusion. Oh, and if the hair being longer in the recording gets brought up, the Jedi could just argue that Osha could have simply cut it off. Funny enough, something that happens later in the show where Hoodless tries to look like Osha to further the plot. Then a ship, not the Jedi ship shown earlier, flies away presumably with Osha on board. At this point I have to wonder why didn't the Jedi just take Osha with them?
You don't think, you never figured out how to think. You're a moron.
And if the answer is because they didn't have room in their ship to store someone they perceive as hostile, then why wouldn't the Jedi go with the security transport to take back someone who killed a Jedi, which is believed to be rare in this circumstance?
Oh, that's stupid! Really stupid.
I truly don't understand the Jedi separation in this matter because that's like sending the military to track down someone who felled one of their own, then just sticking them on a security transport and leaving it to the security team. I just don't buy that within this context, these 2 Jedi wouldn't have come with a security transport and taken Osha back to Coruscant themselves. I like the next scene though, because we're introduced to Master Squid Game, and I have to say, anything you've heard about him being the best part of the show is very true. His introductory scene establishes that he's patient and wise with the Force, and he's actually delivering believable dialogue. Even the children in this scene seem like genuine people. It's just a really great scene that shows so much and saying so little. There's even a moment when one of the younglings says she sees fire and there's some orchestration to convey concern, yet Master Squid Game doesn't lash out at her or correct her, but includes what she sees into his teachings, so it makes sense for everyone in the room. The orchestration also changes into something hopeful or endearing, a really great way to introduce someone actually believable.
Think of diving into a great ocean. Give yourselves over to its weight, its stillness. It's uncertainty. And tell me, what comes into your mind?
Balance.
Good.
Life.
Excellent.
I see fire. It grows larger. It consumes anything that tries to stop it.
The force is powerful, like fire or the ocean. It is a power we must respect.
Also, we're introduced to Master Off-Brand Female Kermit. Despite me using humorous nicknames for these characters, I must say that I liked how Sol, Squid Game, and Vernestra, Off-Brand Kermit, are portrayed. They actually smile and convey emotion, yet don't let it overshadow the scene. It turns out Squid Game and Femkerm are old friends, and she tells him that Osha is in custody for Timu Trin's death. Squid Game finds this unsettling, and Femkerm comments about his attachment to her, but instead of denying it or getting angry, Squid Game relays disbelief that Osha could have plotted to take out Timu Trin. Then Femkerm talks about the concern of this even becoming public, and somehow political enemies would use this against the Jedi. Why? What? How? In which way would the knowledge that an isolated incident of one Jedi being taken down by former Jedi be used against the Jedi? In fact, I'd argue it would be better to get it out there that Timu Trin's death was only possible because of a former Jedi, given the context. It's not like the patrons are forgetting that some random woman came into their cantina on Ueda, started a bar brawl, took a hostage, and killed a Jedi, as I'm sure the bartender would spread that around like wildfire. If that got out, it would be more devastating for the Jedi, since their enemies would think that taking down a Jedi would be an easier task than they believed. Actually withholding the fact that this was due to a former Jedi hurts them in more ways than it helps. Anyways, back to Osha and her transport back to Coruscant. It's revealed that the other inmates are planning to escape since the ship is piloted by droids and is asked if she wants in.
We're planning an escape. You win?
I applaud everyone's enthusiasm here, but that could kill us.
So you'd rather leave your fate to the Jedi?
Yes.
Enjoy prison.
This brought several questions to my mind when I heard this. How would they even know the ship is piloted by droids? Do the pilots come out and make it known that they are in fact the pilots, then go back to piloting? Do the security guards tell the prisoners that the ship is piloted by droids? If so, why would you ever tell your prisoners this information? If the answer is because everyone except the prisoners on the ship are droids, so they put two and two together, that opens up even more questions. Why would any security transport in this universe ever solely rely on droids for their security? We've seen how easily controlled, destroyed, manipulated, and/or disposable droids are in this universe. In this very scene, we're shown this very thing, and the escape is laughably easy and took them only 1 minute and 2 seconds. Yes, I timed it. So, the ship only has 2 droid pilots that fold into chairs. I wonder if those chairs are meant for organic life forms. And 1 droid security guard around the cells, because that's literally all we're shown. Also, back to my point with the Jedi and the security transport, why would the Jedi leave this highly dangerous Jedi killer on a ship with only droids for their transport? Isn't that just stupid? This just gets better and better, doesn't it? So, Osha says she has faith that the Jedi will be merciful to her right before the prison break happens, and just because she says she has faith in the Jedi, the prisoners leave her to her fate, just like the 80s bullies they are at heart. Oh hey, look, this ship is more durable than those bombers in The Last Jedi. Huh. I guess they should have used this type of plating for their volatile bombers. I guess 3PO and Han were idiots for avoiding those asteroids in Empire Strikes Back then, huh? Seriously, look at the ship. It's barely damaged from not 1, not 2, but 6 asteroid hits. Sure, 2 happen off-screen, but it's clear in the audio design and scene that the ship's striking asteroids. Also, this escape plan is pretty stupid when you realize they could have easily stopped the ship in a larger asteroid field, or into a planet, or a space station, or another ship. Also, this scene negates that stupid hyperspace maneuver in The Last Jedi, because if you're going to apply what happened in that film to this very scene, you're accepting that they should have hit those asteroids and been scattered into smithereens. No, using Rise of Skywalker as a defense for that garbage to say it was a 1 in a million doesn't count, since that was JJ trying to retcon such a lame occurrence. And if this truly was a 1 in a million thing, something I bet was only hyperbole, or for simplicity's sake, instead of giving an actual number, why wouldn't you hear about about this happening all over the galaxy since the inception of the hyperdrive. The amount of ships flying around the Star Wars galaxy every single day, I'd wager, is way more than just a million. So this occurrence should be happening all the time. Do you understand what I'm saying here? How crazy of a concept it is to have both these things happen within the same universe? First jumping out of hyperspace ahead of asteroids and into an asteroid field, then 100 plus years later, have a ship fly into physical objects going at hyperspace? You can't have both happen and expect it to make sense with everything we're to understand about the vastness of this galaxy. It's an insult to us that they try to push this off as good writing and acting like you'll just accept it for space magic or it's for kids. I'm done with these big budget drivel conveyors insulting our intelligence with this nonsense and not putting in the work and effort to make a connective story or narrative. Well, back to Osha. She eventually gets Pip and makes her way out of her cell and decides to be noble and save the one convict she was told was violent, since they use Dybbuk's on violent prisoners to keep them docile because Dybbuk's do weird stuff to your brain.
It does weird stuff to your brain.
I'm not saying she should have let him die. I'm saying she should have used more caution when she removed the Dybbuk from his face, because wouldn't you know it, he pushes her out of his way in a frantic state, rushes for the escape pod, and leaves without her, causing her to scream. And here we go, some more questions. Why wouldn't he be in a daze from coming out of that state? Why would he know exactly what's going on if weird stuff was happening to his brain? If he did know what's going on, why didn't he know that Osha was trying to save him? If he did, I guess he's just being a dick then. I don't know. If it's because of some mustache-twirling villain mentality that gets overused, then I'm gonna write that off as poor writing. Plain and simple. Osha finds her way into the cockpit and tries her hand at the "this is fine" meme, except she forgot her coffee cup. She buckles into some sort of seat, and we get another shot of the exterior of the ship. The ship crashes onto a nearby planet, then we're brought back to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant through the magic of transitions. We see Master Squid Game looking at a hologram of Osha when she was an apprentice, and it's evident that what he was told earlier about her alleged crime troubles him. Another Jedi, probably a Padawan since she addresses Squid Game as Master, her name's Jackie, but that's not what we do around here, so she's gonna get the silly nickname of Tiara Head. She tells him that Master Femkerm awaits him down in the detention area. Then something happens that troubles me as a Star Wars fan. Tiara Head begins to ask a question, stops herself, then asks for permission to ask her question, to which Squid Game approves. Look, I know this is a nitpick and such, but something about this irks me because it's apparent that Disney has no idea what George Lucas was trying to say about the Jedi. They're not military personnel, and any time a character in any media asks for permission to speak always comes across as militaristic to me. Again, I know this is a nitpick, and I admit it's definitely not a huge issue for me, but am I the only one who never saw the Jedi as people who needed to ask to ask? I don't remember Anakin or any other Padawan having to ask for permission to speak in this manner. If the argument is to be made against this, that Tiara Head was trying to be respectful, then there are other ways to go about it than portraying the Jedi as some strange militaristic religious group. She could have asked, "Master, may I ask you something?" And they could still keep her pausing beforehand to ask that, to convey she remembered to be respectful to Master Squid Game in this moment. Tiara Head asks Squid Game why he keeps hollow projections of his old Padawans, and brings up that it can contradict the Jedi teachings against sentimentality and such. Squid Game replies about meditating on the past, and Tiara Head helps him finish his sentence with a smile. Oh hey look, some emotion from a Jedi. And it seems like a mutually understanding moment between these two characters. We then see Squid Game and Femkerm in front of some cells with those prisoners from earlier, and they shout out that it was definitely the Jedi killer's idea, despite how stupid that would be considering she's not with them and they don't know if she survived the crash. For all they know, she's dead inside the ship and when found would rip a huge hole in their defense. Anyways, I guess they're just as stupid despite pulling off one of the fastest escape sequences I've ever witnessed. Oh wait, that ship only had 3 droids on it, 2 being stationary as transforming chairs and the other being the only security unit. I guess it helps being stupid in a universe where everyone around you is equally stupid. How lucky.
And when everyone's
stupid.
Everyone's
stupid.
Then Squid Game enters the cell holding Dybbuk Brain, who's talking to himself about how he senses Osha's quote-unquote darkness, and that she's evil, apparently. Squid Game does the generic Jedi hand wave to clear Dybbuk Brain's mind, then he tells the truth about how he was a dick and betrayed Osha despite her trying to help him. I really don't understand why they made him say that he thought she's evil and that he sensed her darkness, even though he also remembers that she helped him and that he betrayed her. I know. The defense for this can be, that's just how Dybbuks work. I suppose that's fine, but they could have just as easily made a scene where Dybbuk Brain is quiet and feeling guilt for leaving her and Squid Game asking him what happened, and then Dybbuk Brain confessing that he betrayed her with some emotion to give some gravity to the scene. It could establish the same outcome and make it seem like he really was in a frantic, mindless state once the Dybbuk was removed, and later realized the situation that he left someone to die despite her helping him. It could add layers to this universe regarding the implementation of Dybbuks and what they can do to people. I don't know. I know this isn't that important either, but stuff like this takes me out of the moment being shown and leaving me asking more questions than it should. Moving on. Squid Game asks to retrieve Osha. Femkerm denies the possibility of survival and denies his request. Then Wait, hold up. What? Why are you so adamant on not proving that a suspected Jedi killer, let me say that again, a suspected Jedi killer actually died in a crash? Even if that were true, which in reality would most likely be the case, but Femkerm doesn't know that, why not at least try and find out if she did perish in the crash? It could alleviate the mystery of her death or not and dispel any future possibilities. Seriously, these characters make absolutely no sense in their motives, their actions, and their mentalities. Squid Game adamantly urges to go find Osha so that he may take responsibility since she was his apprentice. I actually don't mind this because it's actually a master showing some form of remorse or responsibility for the actions of their Padawan.
I'm afraid I cannot afford to lose you to a field mission, Saul. You're far too valuable here.
What are you talking about, you green-skinned moron? He's a Jedi master. He's trained in the Jedi arts for countless years, studied your ways, doesn't come across as arrogant or rash, and seems like he wants to redeem himself and, possibly, his former apprentice.
I trained her. If she is guilty, it is my failure. Let me take accountability.
Are you saying that Jedi Masters don't go on missions or leave the Jedi temples? Which actually wouldn't even make sense even in this own show, because remember, in the beginning of this episode, we saw Timutrin in the cantina by herself. At least I'm pretty sure the other patrons weren't Jedi. They weren't dressed in the Jedi robes, and they just kind of seemed like they were either familiar with her, acquaintances, friends, whatever. But nevertheless, she was there by herself. Was she on a mission? It wasn't really established. Is she just there for leisure time? And if that's the case, then why is she able to go out even with leisure time and not Squid Game? Is it because he teaches the younglings as if that's like a 24/7 job? I mean, I don't know the inner workings of how it works, but remember, Yoda was shown teaching the kids, but he's also shown on the council in this very franchise. So if he's teaching the younglings and still has time to be on the council, then it really isn't a 24/7 job, right? And if that's the case, again, why was Timutrin shown to be away from the temple and not Squid Game? Like, why doesn't that compute, you know? I don't know, stuff like that, just weird. It's not even like this is some sort of dangerous mission either. I know that preparing for the worst is always prudent, but come on. This is a field mission to see if a supposed Jedi killer is dead or alive in a remote area on one planet out of hundreds of planets within the Star Wars galaxy. Also, Disney, do you not even know what a field mission is? It's quite literally for humanitarian or for peacekeeping efforts or for emergency situations. I don't know about you, but trying to get to the bottom of this within the context of what you've already established thus far seems like an emergency situation to me. Also, let's say they did just stop investigating. With the information the Jedi have at this point is that Osha is a possible, highly dangerous fugitive who has started an unnecessary bar brawl, took a hostage, killed a Jedi Master, threatened a bar owner, and if they believe the prisoners, despite being told by Dybbuk Brain that she helped him escape, that she's now aided in the escape plan of criminals. Are you seriously telling me that you don't want to close the case on this extremely out-of-the-ordinary situation, Femkerm?
You are made of stupid.
Let's throw in another question here. Might as well, right? If you're so adamant on political enemies of the Jedi to not use this to their advantage against you, and if you believe that this area may not be in discreet surroundings, as we'll cover in a bit, why would you risk her corpse being discovered by anyone other than the Jedi? You don't know what she had on her body. For all you know, she kept hate logs on her person about the Jedi and how she plans to enact her revenge against the Jedi. She could have had an accomplice written about on these logs. What if there are others like her who have ill will against the Jedi? What if Osha is working for the very political enemies you believe to exist, and they're the very reason why Timu Trin is dead now? Why would you risk her body to be picked up by anyone in this galaxy if you fear the discovery that a Jedi Master has been killed and that she's possibly an agent of your political enemies? Remember, Femcrim doesn't have any answers to any of these questions, yet she believes that burying her head in the sand and hoping that Osha died in the crash is the best course of action, despite her caution about everything we've just established. Once again, good job, Disney. Moving on. Femcrim then reluctantly approves and says,
Small team. Be discreet.
As if being discreet or going in a small team would somehow help her own situation. It's not like the planet or location on the planet we're shown during Osha's crash landing to be inhabited, not even by fauna. So I really don't understand the point of saying to be discreet when it's extremely doubtful that anyone would stumble upon a team of Jedi in that frozen wasteland. I guess it's just in character for her to be such an abysmal idiot. Then again, this is Disney Star Wars, and better yet, it's Disney plus Star Wars. So they really don't understand the tone, atmosphere, characters, or stories they're going for. It's like in one show, the Jedi are some dumb, brainless, morally backwards people. Then in another show, they're portrayed as patient, wise, calm, and cool people. Pick a lane, Disney. You can't have it where one thing is one thing here, and then another that same thing is different there. Moving on. We jump back to Osha waking up in a panic state, considering she just went through a crash landing, where and how she wakes up I immediately questioned. She obviously was thrown from her restraint so hard that she went out cold, but it's revealed she was barely a few feet from where she strapped herself in. Either she's got a skull made of paper, or the scene writers didn't have her waking up across the room with an establishing shot of her seeing how far she was thrown. She also gets up with ease. No broken or fractured limbs, no obvious cuts, no burns, scrapes, nothing. Even her clothes are immune to tears and rips after being in a crash. I need to get me some of those duds. Oh well, who cares about such things in a show about space wizards for children, right? It's not like establishing internal rules and logic within the confines of a narrative are important for audience understanding or anything. I don't know. Then Osha walks around the ship, exits so we get an establishing shot of it being snowy, and the text Karlak comes on screen. Even though it was established to be snowing, she doesn't shiver or even wrap her arms around herself like you'd expect. Her breath doesn't even show the condensation you'd see if you breathed while it's cold or snowing outside. No, you're not having me buy that the clothes she's currently wearing are protective enough to keep her warm, and even if they did, it certainly doesn't explain the lack of visible breaths she's taking. It's little touches like this that help bring atmospheres to life. Remember in Empire Strikes Back when the rebel fighters outside were wearing attires to keep them warm in Hoth's cold environment? Remember how Han and Luke wore warm-looking clothes when they were scouting about Echo Base? Remember how Han had to cut open a tauntaun to stuff Luke inside to keep him warm in Hoth's harsh environment? Yes, I know. You don't see their breaths easily in that scene either, but everything else made it obvious that it was cold. Their clothes, the wind, the fact that Han had to stuff Luke in a tauntaun, that sort of thing. Remember when Luke and Han wore clothing fit for the desert environment of Tatooine? Look, I know that Osha wasn't necessarily able to pick her attire given that she was taken into custody, but that shouldn't take away from the environment around her affecting her. You may be wondering why I'm harping on this so much, and I'll tell you. I've said it once, and I'll say it again. It's little details like this that can help bring the magic of a scene, nay, an environment, together. Lighting is also another aspect of this very concept. Remember in the Mines of Moria when Gandalf had to put a stone in his staff and use some sort of magic to help light the way, adding a layer of mystery and atmosphere to the setting in the Fellowship of the Ring? Remember how dark and dreadful it was when Luke confronts Vader for the first time in Empire Strikes Back? Why am I bringing this up? Well, because I noticed that even after the ship crashes and Osha wakes up, the lighting isn't all that different than when it was in space. The only real difference is that there are less red lights in the background, but those lights don't seem to add that much lighting to the environment. It would have just been more realistic and immersive if the ship now was darker than before, and Osha maybe had to start using Pip as a flashlight to add another layer to the setting. Oh well, another item in the list of missed opportunities for the show, I suppose. Osha walks back inside the ship, then a shadowy figure is seen at the entranceway. The figure walks away and Osha follows. Another transition brings us back to Squid Game and Tiara Head. She thanks Squid Game for bringing her along on her first mission. Then there's a little back and forth regarding the inclusion of fan art. Squid Game essentially goes, "What's wrong with fan art?" To which Tiara Head replies, "Nothing, he's just fan art," implying that he's a particular way. But let me remind you that up until this point, we've seen 6 Jedi, 7 if you include Osha as a former Jedi, and quite literally only 3 of them have been portrayed as normal people: Squid Game, Tiara Head, and Osha. I was going to add Femkerm to this list due to her first introduction, but she's been nothing but robotic since, so she's on the robot list. Sorry, Robot Head. Then the two enter a ship and fan art is shirtless, steaming his clothes or something. He bows and, "I shit you not," says,
"I should have brought Osha in myself. I apologize for my error."
"Then why didn't you, you moron?" Thank you, show, for establishing that he indeed could have brought her in himself. It's crazy to me how studios will write dialogue like this, not realizing that it actually hurts what's been established, yet never write to establish important things that would keep audiences out of the dark. Once again, good job, Disney. Oh crap, is that an actual grin on fan art's face? Wow, so he isn't some emotionless robot. Transition back to Osha on Karlak, and she's chasing that shadowy figure from before. Then the shadowy figure turns around, revealing it to be a child. She says,
"Hello, Osha."
To which Osha replies,
"May."
To which May adds,
"Hello, sister."
Isn't this wonderful? Establishing she has a sister in the most cringe-inducing way possible. Then the setting changes to where Osha is standing in a wooded area of some kind, and she reveals it's some place she remembers as
Brenda?
A fire happens, May runs, Osha gives chase, then they find themselves in a room. May gives some dialogue about the stars and the sea and how they both give each other. Osha then walks into frame and is no longer the Osha we've seen, but her as a child now, standing in front of May. They have an exchange where Osha says she thought May was dead, and you have to roll your eyes if you know what already happens in the show. If Osha believed May was dead and revealed this to May in this way, you realize this doesn't make sense, because May here is still a child, meaning that Osha is so brainless that she believes the child version of her sister is alive here. Okay, as if she never grew up or anything like that. And if the defense for this is she's a Force ghost, I'll have to reply, after laughing of course, why would May care about projecting herself as a Force ghost to Osha in this manner? What purpose does this serve her? If it is indeed a Force ghost, then why would it be presented as a child and not as who May is now? No. Anakin being a young Force ghost at the end of The Return of the Jedi isn't the same thing, because A, that wasn't in the original and it was Sebastian Shaw, still a shame that they forced this inclusion in every Return of the Jedi version since, and B, if it is to be believed that the Force ghost reverted back to when Anakin looked like Hayden Christensen, then it should be said that the popular theory for this is that the Force ghost reverted back before his descent into the dark side. Moving on. May reveals that she's responsible for Temu Trin's death, and it cuts back to Osha waking up in the ship. She checks on Pip and says,
"You wouldn't believe who I just saw."
Transition back to the Jedi ship, and Tiara Head, again, asks,
"Permission to speak freely?"
To which Squid Game replies,
"You don't need to keep asking."
Indeed, she doesn't, Squid Game. That's a good point. Anyway, we get an exchange between Squid Game and Tiara Head regarding Squid Game's relationship to Osha, and we get some background that her sister, May, started a fire that killed the whole family and that Osha was the sole survivor. Fan art is there as well, and both he and Tiara Head are surprised to hear that Osha had a twin. With that knowledge, Tiara Head implies that perhaps May is the one who killed Temu Trin, to which Squid Game quickly shuts down the implication by saying that he saw May die.
Do you think that...
No, May is dead. That was her name, May. I saw her die.
Fan art ends the conversation by saying they're at Karlak, to which there's a transition of a part of a ship detaching into a shuttle of some kind and heading into Karlak's atmosphere. I know this next part is going to be another nitpick, but I really don't understand why they needed to show a shuttle for this. Why didn't they fly into Karlak's atmosphere with the entire ship? It's shown previously to be able to be inside planetary atmospheres when they left Coruscant. So I really don't understand leaving a major part of their ship that can enter atmospheres in orbit and only using a shuttle to go down to the planet's surface. There isn't even dialogue to explain this. Not that it would help much. The ship is also shown to be able to land, So it can't be because the ship isn't able to land. If a defense for this is we're not shown that it can land, only that it can take off, I'll have to ask, how do you think the ship was able to land on Coruscant before? Do you actually believe the ship was specifically built on that platform and it's designed to never be able to land again once it's taken off from the initial planetary environment in the Star Wars galaxy? Do you really believe the Jedi are so stupid they would use that kind of ship design on such a mission, or any mission for that matter? Wait, don't answer that. This is the Acolyte after all, and the Jedi are as intelligent or as brainless as the script needs them to be. All I'm saying is that this decision better not come back to bite them in the ass later, because then it won't be a nitpick. It would be a contrivance to push the plot along. Moving on. We then see the Three Stooges, Squid Game, Tiara Head, and fan art in the interior of the ship Osha crash landed in. They have some kind of unimportant dialogue, then Squid Game's spider senses tingle and he orders them to follow him. Transition to Osha running around some snow-covered stones and a cut back to the Three Stooges on her trail. Osha enters a cave and stops running for some reason, despite the cave clearly being wide enough for her to easily run in. The Three Stooges catch up and enter the cave. Fan art ignites his yellow lightsaber. I'm guessing for light, but it didn't really seem to matter all that much since the lighting in the show is horrendous, and you really cannot tell if an atmosphere is as dark as the creators want you to believe. Oh, hey, wait a second. I thought Jedi only take out their lightsabers to kill. Well, I guess that goes out the window as well. Osha then finds herself at a cliff's edge, nowhere else to go. The Three Stooges catch up. Osha and Squid Game have some back and forth about her innocence and that Squid Game wishes her to step away from the ledge. Osha takes a bad step backwards, and Squid Game uses the Force to catch her. He pulls her to safety, and Osha says that May is alive, to which Squid Game says he believes her. Then the Three Stooges escort Osha away. Now, when he says he believes her about the May part, and this just came back to me, remember before how he shut down Tiara Head so quickly about how he watched May die as if it's impossible for her to be alive or the one to contribute to Timu Trin's death? Yeah, this part kind of makes that nonsensical, because he's like immediately believing Osha here. Now, you could say, oh, he's just believing her because he wants her to trust him so he can take her back easily. But if that's the case, I don't really see why you wouldn't even need to do this tactic anyway, because all he had to do is just like, you know, say, hey, I missed you or something, do something other type of dialogue. But I don't know. That is what it is, I guess. Then we have a cutaway of some rocky shoreline and a cringe-inducing robotic voiceover has some dialogue akin to how high schoolers want to come across as deep and cool, but it falls flat if you use your brain. The voice quite literally talks about how killing a Jedi with a weapon, steel or laser, is impossible, even though it isn't, and this show has proven this. It's revealed Hooded Warrior from earlier is walking towards something, and a figure is shown to be standing in the distance like the edgelord of all edgelords. The voice ends with a line that I quite honestly have no idea how it made it into the script. An acolyte kills without a weapon. Then the figure ignites a lightsaber and finishes with, an acolyte kills the dream. Then it cuts to credits. Oh boy. Where do I even begin with this pile of garbage? The dialogue was rough, the lighting sucked and doesn't grant actual clarification for dark or light settings, the acting is atrocious from the majority of actors, the story was almost too vague to even try to be immersed in, characters and their motivations are stupid or totally devoid of their own logic, and there were plenty of missed opportunities to do things in better ways. I'm not saying you shouldn't like this show. All I'm saying is I totally get why so many people didn't like the show. Hopefully, the next episode gives me a little more to work with as far as investment is concerned, but something tells me that's a long shot. Okay, I'm so glad I finally finished this episode. I will endeavor to work on this as long as I can. I actually enjoyed making this video, and it allowed me to actually dive into details that I haven't seen or heard other reviewers or critics dive into. It was fun and got the gears turning for me. If you liked this video, please don't hesitate to like and subscribe. It's free and shows me much needed support as a small YouTuber. Anyways, I'll have to go now and try to drown my brain with alcohol or something just to have made watching this garbage bearable. I hope you all have a great day, and as always, stay wonderful.